Hello and welcome back to Sea Red UK, where quite simply is Chicago Bulls thing. This podcast is part of the Fans First Sports Network, so wherever you're listening, rate, review, subscribe, helps us out and ensures you don't miss another episode. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit the bell, give us a thumbs up, and leave some comments down below. And apologies for that intro, but I'm Matt, and as usual, joined by Neill. How are we doing, Neill?
I'm not too bad. How are you?
Tired, a
Standard.
little emotional, but also a little numb,
Okay.
as my little thing says, wherever it is there.
Yes.
Because I've just become numb to what is Chicago Bulls at the minute.
hmm
Um,
It's tough times.
yeah, so this episode we've kind of put out at the last not at the last minute, but it was a last minute decision to go tonight, wasn't it?
Yeah, we weren't sure whether it was going to be tonight or tomorrow night, and then I kind of probably moved the goalposts quite late in the day.
Yeah,
I
and
decided to go tonight.
hence me tripping over my words in the introduction.
Yeah, blame me. It's fine. I can take it.
So yeah, obviously since our last episode, Bulls have had two games and another two losses.
Yeah.
We did our predictions back end last week to cover them two games. I predicted two L's. I think you said we'd split them,
hmm
taking the win against the Nets.
Yeah.
But as it was in the in-season tournament game on Friday, we lost 121-108 to the Toronto Raptors. Same old story.
Yes.
Slow
Same
start,
old story.
and to be fair, it was the first quarter that did it. We just didn't recover. We lost the first quarter 36-22. At one point, I mean, obviously that's only 14 points, but at one point it was 15. So that standard 15-point head start that we like to give teams.
hmm
Second quarter, tied it 26-26. Third quarter, we lost 31-29. And then the fourth quarter, we won, 31-28. So apart from that first quarter, pretty even.
hmm
Especially when you look at all the other stats as well. I mean, from 3 points, we hit 12 of 27. They hit 13 of 39. Free throws is where seemingly we didn't do so well. In 12 of 19, they hit 20 of 27. Assists, they got 32, we got 20. And rebounds, they out rebounded us 40-37. Field goals, they hit 44, whereas we hit 42, and they attempted one more than us. So yeah, when you look at that, pretty even game, apart from that
Well,
first
yeah.
quarter.
Yeah, apart from the first quarter. But again, it's one of those ones where if you just look at the box score, if you just look at the stats, it doesn't look too bad.
Yeah,
But when you actually see it on the floor, it paints a very, very different picture. And it was yet another game that was frustrating to watch, but it certainly frustrated the living hell out of DeMar on the floor as well.
yeah. Obviously ejected with about 2 seconds to go.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
He was getting very frustrated with the refs, and I think he potentially had a fair point. I don't think the officiating was particularly strong in the game. Um, So it definitely resulted in frustration. That and the fact that the Bulls found themselves in the same hole, trying to climb out of it again for the whole game.
yeah, I mean, what did we end up with? 3 techs in that. I mean, one of them was a flop on Javon Carter, which
Yeah,
Siakam had been doing all night, and
yeah,
nothing was called. But look, you can't blame the refs in a game where you're not even
no,
in it.
no.
There's
It
going to
just
be good
adds to the
calls.
frustration, doesn't it? It just adds to the
Yeah,
frustration for the players when they're in it. But fact of the matter is that they dug the hole.
yeah,
The referees did not dig the hole. They just added to the annoyance for the players that they were already feeling, which was dealt at their own hand. That was their own making.
yeah. I mean, there was that I said about I hope Bulls watch that little clip back of DeMar getting ejected because of Scotty Barnes doing his YMCA impression or whatever it was he was doing. Basically dancing around behind the ref, wasn't he, doing the whole ejecting, and look, I've got nothing against sort of, as I said before, about against Raptors, but there was just a lot of, I don't know what's the word, sort of shithousery, I guess, in that. And Scotty Barnes was the one who was constantly clapping, and it's kind of like, you're not fantastic yourself, so don't, and hopefully DeMar looks at it next time we face Raptors, just goes out and absolutely schools Scotty Barnes and teaches him a lesson.
Let's hope
or
so.
somebody does on the Bulls team. Not that I have any faith in them doing that whatsoever. Obviously, in that game, individual-wise, Zach went for 36 points in a loss.
Zach looked good, but Zach often looks good, and the team doesn't win. It's good to see Zach kind of engaged again because, as you know, I've been getting fairly frustrated with Zach, and it's not that I blame Zach for everything that we're going through because I don't. There is no singular finger to be pointed at any one person or any one thing or any one scheme. It's just this complete grouping of issues that it doesn't matter what part of the game or the team that you try to break down and analyze, everything is flawed.
Yeah.
Everything from top to bottom.
Yeah. And I mean, again, in that game, Vooch, bad game. 9 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal. For you starting big, that's not a great stat line at all. And like you say, you look at the box score and it's bad. You watch the game, it's even worse.
Yeah.
And that's the worrying thing with Vooch at the minute, because I mean, obviously we'll talk about the next game in a minute, but it's just becoming a bit too constant at the minute with Vooch.
Yeah, it really is.
And it's when you look into Vooch to be that guy and he's not that guy.
No.
It just adds to the problems that we've got with this team. P. Will had a pretty decent game, 12 points, 5 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, 2 or 2 from 3. I think one of his threes was in garbage time, and to be honest, at that point I couldn't even be bothered asking you to say it. So, yeah. And then, obviously, last night we faced the Brooklyn Nets in Brooklyn. And we fell to 118-109 loss.
But it was different, right?
Yeah, we flipped the script. We come out hot, very hot.
Man, it was for that first quarter, it was exciting, it was enjoyable, but it also had this dark looming cloud where you just felt this is not sustainable.
No.
And unfortunately, they proved us right in a massive way.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it last year, time and time again, didn't we? Where we'd race out into these big leads.
Yeah.
And then we'd just let the team just claw back. And again, it was a game where Vooch should have dominated because they didn't have a legit big.
No.
And
he should have feasted all night long.
Yeah. Their game was played outside of the paint, which should have allowed Bulls to utilize their game in the paint, and we just didn't. I mean, Vooch ended up with 6 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal. And I've just seen something that apparently it's the first time he's scored less than double digits in back-to-back games since 2016.
Wow.
And, that, like I've just said, it's adding to the problems.
So I have a question for you, right? Because I mean, I've seen this as kind of on the socials as well. So I'm gonna put it to you. Do you think it's because Vooch is at the stage of his career where he's in decline and we're seeing his regression, or do you think it's in his head and he's just not engaged?
Probably a bit of both.
Hmm.
I think he worked to get his contract. Obviously, you could say that going to FIBA World Cup was a bad choice, but because it was extra games that, as you're getting older, you don't need, especially when you haven't played in it for 4 years. Representing your
Yeah,
country for 4 years, whatever it was. But yeah, I think a lot of it is checked out. Um, and the fact that he's checked out, Zach looks checked out. It's just. I think we spoke about it before. The two of the longest tenured players on the team
hmm
now. Obviously, Zach's the longest tenured, and Vooch is what, third, fourth now. And it's not working, is it?
absolutely not.
I mean, we always say about Vooch being a double king or machine, whatever you want to call him. Yet he's not at the minute. And I mean, obviously, just going back to last night's game, obviously, we raced into that big lead in the first. Obviously, we won the first 36-19. And then, yeah, it just went to shit.
Absolutely fell
Because,
apart.
I mean, that first quarter, we hit 8 3-pointers. In the game, we hit 12.
Yep.
Nets couldn't hit anything in that first. And then all of a sudden, they went off to hit 25 of 53 threes,
Now
which,
you have to respect that as well, but at the
yeah,
same time, if there was more pressure and more of a closeout put on them, perhaps they wouldn't have hit quite so many.
yeah. And that's the thing. Like, everyone says that this defense is solid that we've got. But it's not how many, the way we play defense, we're leaving wide open shooters all the time.
Hmm.
And unfortunately for Bulls, not everybody's going to shoot as bad as Bulls do,
Yeah,
because every other team's like a legit NBA team with legit NBA shooters, and
we'll see.
relying on them to miss is just, it's not
It's a
successful winning.
dangerous game to play. And
Yeah,
I think what you were saying there, I completely agree with you. I think that the Chicago Bulls are are a strong defensive team on interior defense.
yeah,
But the problem is they can't. I mean, how many times have we been saying this? They can't defend the three ball. And the
yeah,
problem is that the vast majority of teams in the NBA now live and die by the three. So if you're leaving teams outside and they're getting hot, like the Nets did last night, you're going to get toasted big time. And that's exactly what happened.
yeah. And how many times do I put in the live thread, score a three, give a three?
Right, exactly. Yeah,
Because we'll go down and you think, finally, Kobe's hit a three or Zach's hit a three.
yeah,
Next play down, they've got that 3 points back. So it's all well and good us hitting threes, but if we can't stop them, we're not going to win
yeah,
games. And um, again, when you look through the stats, apart from that 3 point stat, it was pretty close in
yeah,
terms of team stats. Like, we out rebounded them. They out assisted us. Free throws, we got more than them. It was, like I said, it was field goals in general. We hit 40 of 83. They hit 41 of 83. It was just that 3 point, like, disparity again. 12 from
yeah.
us of 32, 25 of 53. So they nearly hit as many as we took. Which it's not recipe for a win, that is it?
No,
Um,
as has been paraded around by people, it's a math problem. And
yeah,
when you look at it like that, it is quite simply a math problem. Um,
yeah.
It's plain and simple.
I mean, the bench was shocking again.
Yeah.
We got 13 points from our bench. And obviously, we did go into this game without Caruso as well, who
Yeah.
we've now broken. Well, it was actually Kobe that broke him, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Just one of them freak sort of things on it. Stood on his foot.
Yeah.
Caruso sat the rest of the game. And the bench seems to be struggling since Caruso went into that starting lineup / 6 games.
Yeah.
And it's just, yeah. I mean, individual wise, Demar, 27 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, 1 steal. He was trying
Oh, he
again.
was.
P. Will, your guy,
Showed up last night, didn't he?
apart from that one crazy turnover where he just
Well,
don't like him dribbling.
no. I mean, I don't know what it is. Like, it's like I kind of said on the live thread messing last night. He needs to stop using the hand lotion before he walks on the court because his hands are just. I don't know. I mean, he has hands like shovels, right? He should be able to grab the ball and completely get a good, decent, firm grip on the ball. I mean, almost touching thumbs and fingers around the bloody thing. But he seems to get it, and it pops out of his hands like soap in a shower. It just boom, and it's gone. Now, I don't understand it, and it's the same when he's going for the dunks. We all know he blows a lot of dunks, right? And I think part of the reason why he blows the dunks is because he goes for a lot of them one-handed, and he doesn't seem to have a good grip on the ball.
Yeah.
If he went up two-handed, he's more than capable of dunking it with two hands. If he went up for two-handed dunks more often, I think a few more of those would go in as well. But I digress.
Yeah, and I mean, he finished with 20 points, 4 rebounds, and he was 4 or 5 from 3.
Mm-hmm.
And
plenty of those rainbows last night.
Obviously, he was back in the starting lineup.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to get that sort of a performance out of him, by the turnovers and the missed dunks and stuff like that,
yeah,
I'd quite happily have him back in that starting lineup to allow Caruso to control that second unit.
Yeah,
because that's when, back. Yeah, because to me, that's when we've looked at our best, when Caruso's in that second unit, as we've said all along.
Yeah.
Obviously, last night as well, Kobe, 23 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. And the last 4 games, I'd say, Kobe's been our standout player.
Yeah, he's been shooting the ball a lot better.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's it. 2 more losses. But at least the second one was different.
Yeah, new ways to lose.
So, I don't know if you've got anything else on last night's game or Raptors game.
I don't know. I mean, we had the towel ripping incident as well with Demar, which maybe is worth a mention. Seems to be his go-to when he's frustrated, doesn't it? You catch him on the sideline ripping a towel in half. He's obviously showing signs of frustration. And just to roll back a little bit on what you were saying about Vooch, Vooch played well last year and played in all 82 games, as we know, was averaging double-doubles for the season. Is it not a massive concern that he was able to do that in a contract season, as many players do, and now first year of his extension, and he's disappeared? For me, that doesn't point so much towards regression. That points to he's got what he wanted, and now his heart's not in it.
Yeah,
and that's a real concern because, as you know, as everyone that listens know, one of our first episodes this season was about being on the Vooch train, and we were backing Vooch. And I've kind of always backed Vooch more often than I've not backed Vooch, but he's a major concern for me right now. I mean, the guy has just disappeared. Yeah, that's about it, really.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's yeah. I mean, we're obviously struggling for how to put things into words with this Bulls team, and
it's just so bad. It's just so bad. It's hard.
Yeah, and it just doesn't seem like there's any sort of a solution, and kind of takes us into our next segment pretty nicely because, like I say, we're struggling to put things into words, struggling to come up with any kind of solutions. So we decided to open the mailbag, and as expected, it's there's a pretty constant theme throughout most people's questions. We have just had another one just come in just as we've started recording as well. So
Okay.
some are a bit more long-winded than others, but I'll start with the ones that we had in our Facebook group. If you're not in it, it's on Facebook. Go join it.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was one.
We're always welcoming more members.
Yeah. Now there was one from your alter ego, Nigel.
Yes. You don't have to read that one if you don't want to. That was more just a venting session.
Yeah. But there was one from Brett, and he's put, and like I said, it's quite a long-winded one. Less a question, more a comment. There is more than one thing wrong with this team, so it would be wrong to single out any one person or group. I said in my season preview article, which is available on creduk.com, that Billy Donovan is still coaching a system that belongs in 2016. But the composition of the roster also needs to be more balanced, and that's on Acme. That being said, the Bulls have some all-star caliber players alongside some solid role players, and they aren't playing well together as a team. There are veteran players on that roster, and at some point they have to step up, take responsibility, and play their part in resolving this mess. That arguably all comes back to coaching, though. If Acme did get rid of Donovan, who do they replace him with? Who is available that is going to come in and improve this team's win-loss record? There's an argument that a lot of the blame lays at Acme's door. They've had nearly 4 years at this point to get the house in order, and what we instead have is a fundamentally unbalanced guard-heavy roster and a coach who is still playing small ball in a league where multiple teams are playing with multiple bigs on the floor together, and all the MVP candidates are 7 foot. If the Reinsdorfs go root and branch and replace front office again too, who is going to want to take on the Bulls project? So yeah, like I say, not so much a question, but I think a lot of what he said is we've kind of said in different episodes as well, like roster construction, all-star players not been all-star players, the veterans not playing as well as they could, and the young players either not getting a chance or not stepping up, basically. Now, a few of the points what he says do come up in other questions, and it seems very Billy Donovan heavy.
It really does.
So I'll wait until we ask a couple more of the questions, especially about Billy, before we get on to Billy. And the next question comes from Kevin Parsons. Is it time to cut ties with Levine and rebuild? Good teams require heart, talent, and chemistry. Which of these do Bulls need to add the most? So I'll throw that one to you to start with.
Yeah. Okay. Well, first and foremost, Zach is going. I mean, that's pretty much a foregone conclusion at this stage. As for the three aspects, what was it? Heart, talent, and
heart, talent, and chemistry.
Heart, talent, and chemistry. Right. Okay. Well, I don't think this team is necessarily devoid of talent. I think it's seriously lacking floor chemistry. They seem to have good chemistry off the court, but it doesn't seem to transfer onto the court. And I don't know why. And I think we spoke about this on the last episode. I don't really understand why it's not working and why it's not gelling on the floor. But for me, of those three things, purely because they have the chemistry off the floor and somehow it needs to find its way onto the floor for this to work. And they have the talent. For me, the one thing that's seriously lacking, and you can see it in a lot of the players, particularly the players that we need to step up the most, the heart isn't there. It isn't in it. And for me, if the heart was there, then there'd be a lot more fight about this team. And the fight's gone. The drive is gone. So for me, if I could inject any of those three things into this team, the first choice for me would be heart. Because I think if they played with more heart, they might get a few more wins.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like you said, with Zach, he's pretty much gone. Rebuild, who knows? Maybe as long as there's some sort of change, which will come with Zach going, obviously.
Yeah.
And as you say, the heart, talent, and chemistry bit. The fact that, to me, our best two players this season so far are Caruso and Kobe. They're the two that are playing with the most heart. They're the ones that are constantly putting their body on the line to take charges, to do whatever it is to basically win games. And when you've only got two players and one's not constantly out injured, but you're constantly worried about his injuries, that's a problem in itself. Now, Damar plays, I wouldn't say with heart, but he plays with a desire to win.
Yeah.
And that's slightly different to playing with heart, basically. He wants to win, we know that. But his frustration gets the better of him, and that's when he starts missing his shots. I mean, we saw in the next game last night, the ISO Damar come back. And that's a problem with Bulls in general. And something that I was meant to mention is that when it's not working, we resolve back to what we know, and that is ISO Damar.
Yeah.
So, next question comes from Gary, and it's always a worry when Gary drops us a question. If you know, you know. But I was quite shocked at his question, actually, and I did tell him that. But spent the afternoon trying to think of a question that isn't the same overall question. If we have been paying attention, we can all see, hear, and know as a franchise we are. Every question will be something similar. We are in deep. We have no real draft. The young players have no time. The vets are failing, and we all know who owns this team. My question is, going forward, what one thing would you change with the current, whatever the hell this is, group? What would keep you getting up for the late/early tips? What adjustment to the roster or coaching staff would get you back on the train and this team back in the race? Everything is not the answer. We are between shit and a shit place. So like Bulls, what would be the one move to shake it up and get it back? So yeah, a bit around the houses to ask the same question, but that's Gary. Basically, what I'm taking from that is, what one move do you want to see that pulls you back in, I guess?
It's a really tough one to give a blanket answer to, especially for me who likes to talk too much. I don't think there is any one move that's going to rectify or right the ship. And that's the problem. The problem is that it's inherently broken from top to bottom. The core is rotten all the way through right now. And so, I mean, there's a lot of people saying that Billy is not getting the most out of it. And a lot of people are attacking Billy and going at Billy. And look, I'm not trying to say that that's not a fair argument or anything. But I mean, a coach's job is to take each player and treat them like a sponge, right? You fill them with as much information as you can and you hope they absorb it. And then in turn, you squeeze every drop out of them that you possibly can to get the best out of your player, just like you would with a sponge. The problem is, if the sponge is dry and you've run out of water, you get nothing either way. You can squeeze a dry sponge, you'll get nothing out of it. And if you've got no water to pour into the sponge, if it's all gone, then there's nothing to be absorbed. Everything falls apart. And I think that's kind of where we're at right now. So I wouldn't put the blame necessarily 100% on Billy. I'm not absolving him from blame either, because I think he has completely run out of ideas with what he has to deal with and what he has in front of him. I think Acme obviously need to prove themselves. Changing them, there's people shouting for the front office to be changed. Listen, that ain't happening. Okay, so you can all just jump off the get rid of Acme train right now, because I can guarantee you Jerry is not going to get rid of Acme. It took him way too long to get rid of the last front office. There's no way he's going to jump ship that quickly this time. I think Billy is here to stay. Casey Johnson reported that earlier on today as well. Billy's not going anywhere. So it has to come from the squad. It has to come from the players. We know the change is coming with Zach. And I think for me, what we do with Zach is going to be that change. It's going to be that first change that gives us some sort of direction again. And that's what we need right now. That's what I need now to keep me interested and invested. Is I need direction. I need change. I need to see something happening. And I know I just have to be patient, because like we've said, it's not going to happen overnight. And we said that from the very beginning when Zach said he wanted a trade, or when the news broke about a trade being on the cards. But I'm holding out for that. I think I said that to you last night or today as well. We need to hang in to see once the trade happens and what follows that, before we completely and utterly shut the door on this team, because that's got to be what happens. That's for me the change, the first step. So Zach is the thing I need to see happen first, and then we'll worry about the rest of it as it falls in behind it. Straight answer, 2 words. There you go.
Well, yeah, to be fair, I agree with what you just said.
That's handy.
It's got the first move is got to be the Zach trade, but it's got to be the right trade as well, and that's to me that's the most important thing, because I want to see that change, and I want to see the Zach thing just over and done with, but I want to see it benefit Bulls, and if it doesn't benefit Bulls and we just end up coming out of it looking the same, if not worse, that's not enough, is it? Do you know what I mean? It's just, you might as well have not done it, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, the question that's just come in has come from Stuart, and apologies, I don't know if it's Smith or Smythe. It's spelt Smythe, but could be Smith. Aussie Stew, as he's known on Twitter, but this is in the Facebook group. How likely do you feel it is that AK's asking price is still too high for Zach, and we'll end up having him stay all season while the ship sinks? Also, and this is as you just said, with Casey Johnson reporting that Billy's job is 100% safe, and him having previously walked away from a rebuilding situation, does this increase the likelihood that if/when Zach gets traded, it won't be for draft picks and possibly a solid young player, but for more win-now role player depth? Yeah, obviously that's the first one that kind of touches on Billy in a way. Yeah, I mean, obviously people are going to start dragging up stuff from the past when it comes to this sort of situation, and obviously nobody really knows the full ins and outs of what happened at OKC, why Billy left. Apparently it was a mutual decision. Was it more that they wanted rid of him, he wanted out because he didn't want to go through that rebuild, or what? Now, everyone says that Billy's a player's coach, but they also say that he doesn't develop players. So obviously the question about the Zach trade, they seem to have set the price of the young player. Was it 2 first-round picks and a vet to fill out the salary, basically? Now, if we're going to keep Billy, which obviously we'll get onto in a minute, that young player, we might as well not get him. And as for the draft picks, don't interest me anyway. Do you know what I mean? If we trade to the wrong team, them draft picks are going to be late first, and I don't trust AK to draft well anyway. Let alone Billy to actually use them when we do get them, or the player. So yeah, you just don't know with what's going on, do we? You know,
No.
That's the price that AK or Acme have set. Doesn't seem to fit with what Billy likes to do. So it goes back to what I've just said with Gary's question. Are we going to end up making a trade just for making a trade sake, basically, because Zach doesn't want to be here? You know, so where do you stand on it?
Yeah, I think that no matter way you try and slice it, Zach is out the door. I know there's some people beginning to say, you know, because he's off the back of a couple of good performances, or good scoring performances at least. Maybe we could keep Zach. Maybe we could turn him around and make him decide to stay. And I don't think so. I think once he's gone to his agent, and his agent being who his agent is, that ball is rolling down the hill, and there's no way you can stop it. You're not going to get out in front of it. He's out the door, right? So the question is, as you say, who for and who with? And I said this when it first came out about Zach looking for a trade. I don't think there's going to be any winners in a trade for Zach right now. I don't think the Bulls are going to benefit enough, and I don't think the team that Zach goes to is going to benefit enough. So I don't really know is the honest answer. I don't really know. I mean, if we know, like you say, we know the asking price, we know the set asking price, but I think the Bulls are potentially going to have to come down from that to some extent. So the big question is going to be, what do we end up with? And like you say, will it be for a win now mentality, or like the question said, a win now mentality, or will it be to build? And that's the whole point I was making about, we need to see what happens with this trade, because as soon as we see what happens with this Zach trade, we have a direction. We then have a better picture and a better idea of what this front office are planning on doing, because at the moment we're all left guessing, and that's kind of the way that Acme operate anyway. They like to keep everybody guessing, as we know. But until they make that move, we don't know, are we looking at a rebuild or a retooling, as they like to phrase it.
Yeah. So I know we had another question on Messenger, which you've got before we go on to the ones on Twitter.
Okay, so this came from Reese Taylor, who's very active on the group. New to the Bulls. All I can do is apologise that you ended up getting drawn into this team in its current state. But Reese asked me basically, if we rebuild fully or partly in this trade, meaning the Zach trade, or next summer, how long before we can realistically expect to be good again? Or could we easily end up being the Pistons or the Wizards for a bit? He then went on to say that he thinks we end up like the Pistons, but they beat us. So, yeah, go on. I'll let you jump on that one.
Well, what I'd say is there's only two teams worse than us in the East at the minute, and that is Pistons and the Wizards.
Right.
Looking at them two teams, I prefer the future that Pistons have got. There's a lot of players on that team I'd quite happily trade Zach for.
Mm-hmm.
It's impossible saying it how long until we're good, because we don't know what the trade's going to be. You know, you could get a player in that just fits Chicago. You know, obviously there's some of the trades that have been thrown around, like obviously going back to the last season with RJ Barrett. Not a player I particularly want, but who's to say he doesn't come in and become an all-star in Chicago?
Mm.
I'm not saying he's going to, but so you just don't know. And we kind of thought we were going to be good when AK made all these moves in the first place, bringing in Demar, Caruso, Lonzo, Vooch, I guess. So, I think it all falls on Acme and making the right moves, but also being quick enough to move off them when they're clearly not working, rather than this 3 years of continuity.
Yeah, and that picture that's been painted by the continuity thread, and their willingness to hold on to it against all odds, doesn't exactly paint a good picture going forward, in regards to whether or not they are prepared to make dynamic changes and go for a different direction if this direction isn't working, or take another side step and go again. It doesn't seem to be the way they do it. They seem to kind of like Jerry Reinsdorf does, invest and overinvest and stay invested too long. And unfortunately, that's looking like the way it could play out. But again, like you said, it's very much a case of, if they make a move and it works and it fits, it could happen quite quickly. I mean, it's all about fit for players, right? I mean, we have one prime example that came out of Chicago. In fact, two prime examples that came out of Chicago that I can think of very quickly off the top of my head. The more recent one being Lowry. He didn't fit in Chicago. It didn't work for him. He went to Cavs, improved slightly. He went to Jazz, and now he's an all-star. He's playing fantastic down there. So it was all about his fit in that team. And going back a little bit further, Jimmy Butler is another one. I know you don't like to talk about Jimmy, but the guy has talent, okay? Whether you like it or not. And he went to Miami, having went to Minnesota after leaving the Bulls. That didn't fit for him. He's gone to Miami, and it's been the perfect fit for him there, and he's flourished. So if we ended up getting a player that hasn't fit in one or two different clubs, and he comes to Chicago, maybe Chicago will be the right fit for him, and that could transform everything. I don't know who that player would be, but maybe that's the way it works out. But if it doesn't, and this just turns into a full rebuild, I think, to answer your question, Reese, I think we could be looking at 3 to 5 years.
On top of the 3 to 4 years that we've already had. Yeah. I think obviously as well, we move Zach. What's to say it doesn't improve somebody that we've already got?
That's true too.
Kobe, P. Will. Whoever, everyone says that it's Demar that's holding them back. It could be Zach.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? So it could be a simple case of get one bad apple off the team, and who knows? The rest may flourish.
You never know.
Probably not, but yeah.
We can but hope.
So, on to the Twitter questions. We've got a few more on Twitter. First one is from Samadi. Now, Samadi likes to ask us questions all the time, but they're a bit more on a personal level, I guess, is the right way to say it. And he said, will Neill and Matt be game time decisions for the next Bulls game? The fans need to know. Cheers from California with a cup of tea emoji. Now, I imagine that's in response to the fact that I was putting out injury reports for ourselves over the weekend, basically to highlight the injury report that Bulls were putting out. Now, it's something that we've gone back and forth within it, really, in our own heads, with each other, whatever it is. And it's getting hard to get up at 12:30, 1 a.m, whatever it happens to be. We've said before, none of us particularly sleep.
No.
But if I'm going to give up my sleep more than I do already, I want to be able to enjoy what I'm watching. And right now, I'm just not enjoying it.
Yeah.
Last night's game was the one that very, very nearly stopped my streak of live tips, which I think is at about 212 now. Just quick flex.
Who's counting?
Not me anymore. And it was because I leave my house at about 4:30 in the morning on a Monday. So Sunday night, Monday morning games are crap for me at the best of times.
Yeah.
And I just kind of think to myself, why do I want to get up at this time to watch this shit show, basically? And I set 2 alarms all the time as well to make sure I'm up. The first one goes off and it makes me feel sick, and I could launch my phone across the room. I then lay there in bed and think, I'm not getting up. Then the second one goes off and I think, you know what? I want to show a little bit of heart, a little bit of passion, because at the end of the day, not many players on the Bulls team are doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So, for me personally, in reply to Samadi, I don't think it's going to be a game time decision. It'll be a decision that I've made throughout the day. Chances are I'm going to be there. It's ingrained in me now. As much as I don't want to be there, as he says, the fans need to know, and we can't let the fans down like the Bulls. So.
Yeah. For me, I think I kind of say that I might not bother just to make myself feel like I have the choice. But in all honesty, I know full well 12:30 tip, 1 o'clock tip, 2 o'clock tip, 3 o'clock tip, my alarm will go off if I'm asleep, or I'll just have stayed up and I will watch the games. What I'm struggling with more than ever before, though, is staying awake and interested in the games, especially the games that are dead in the water.
Yeah.
It's very, very hard to at 2 o'clock in the morning, 1:30, whatever time it is in the morning, knowing you've got to get up and face the day in a few hours' time, and to stay focused and stay in the zone for the games, more so than actually showing up at the start of the game, for me anyway. But we're still there, we're still hanging in there, and as much as we might bitch and moan and say we're not going to be there, I think, to be honest with you, if we had the opportunity to give each other enough stick, the other person would show up anyway.
Yeah, and you can probably tell from the tweets that come out from Seared UK account the mindset whilst watching these games anyway. So
yeah,
very little praise gets dished out, and a lot of swear words, and say it as it is.
But this
basically
isn't the way we want to be when we're watching the games. We want to be enjoying them and praising the players and praising the team and enjoying it. Like, it's so much more fun at that time of the morning to be watching a good product on the floor. And unfortunately, that's just not what we have right now. And, to coin a phrase, it is what it is.
Yeah. So the next one, not really a question, as he says, and it's from Troy. Troy from Australia and the Whole Lot of Bull podcast. If you haven't listened, go check him out. And he basically puts, no question, just a statement. Fire Billy and capitals, blow it up. And kind of takes us into the next few questions, really. Like I said, very Billy heavy.
Mm-hmm.
I know Troy kind of flits between different ideas, as we all do. And obviously at the minute he must be settling on Fire Billy, blow it up, all that sort of stuff. And the next question comes from Wayne in the group. And it is Billy the problem? And then he goes on to say, Billy keeps getting a pass with blame going on the players and front office, but surely it is his job to get the best from what he has. We're all screaming out for him to play the two-way guys, especially Phillips, but he sticks with the 10-man rotation that is just not working. And yeah, basically what Wayne says there sums up my frustrations with Billy. And I've always said it, the rotations and not going to the players that, basically giving the other players a chance. Now, we did see, obviously, Phillips briefly in that Toronto game. And yeah, all right, he missed his shot when he took it, but he took it. He had the confidence to take it. His decision making was spot on. And it's like we said in the last episode, play him. Because that's the only way you're going to see what they get. Or get to see what they've got. And if it doesn't work in that 2 minutes that you're putting him out there, let's say sit him next to Caruso, sit him next to DeRozan, let him talk it through with them. Then put him straight back out. But Billy doesn't. He gives them that one shift. And I don't think there's anybody that was disappointed with that shift from Phillips, apart from Billy, because he doesn't put him back out. Even in garbage time, didn't put him back out. And you just think, that's not developing him. And then obviously didn't feature last night, same as Dalen. I haven't seen anything as yet that says they're going back down to Windy City ahead of tomorrow's game. So whether they're going to sit on the bench against and watch Celtics basically destroy Bulls, or go and actually get some minutes down with Windy City, who knows? It's been a few days since we've had a tweet about them up and down. So
yeah. See, we were complaining we were getting them too much. Now we don't know where we are.
As for, obviously, is Billy the problem? Which was the first part of his question. He's not the problem, but he's a big part of the problem.
Absolutely.
As you said earlier on, this team is rotten to the core. And Billy is part of that core. As you've said as well, we've seen this thing of that Casey Johnson's put out, basically saying that front office and management love Billy, his job's pretty much safe, blah blah blah. At the end of the day, it's not Billy that's bricking his threes. It's not Billy that's passing to Vucic's kneecaps. It's not Billy that's deciding not to drive to the rim. It's not Billy that's telling the players to go back to what doesn't work. However, as Wayne says, the rotations sometimes don't work. His lack of wanting to play past that 10-man rotation is a problem. But then it's like I said to you the other day, I think it was on a Mark K tweet, where he was basically, we know he's a big Billy defender anyway, and he's saying that he is starting to use his rotations, he's starting to move the players around, and but it's still that 10-man rotation. And it's like I said to you, you can't build a jigsaw with broken pieces. And that's essentially what you're doing if you're using that same 10-man rotation. It's not working, whatever configuration of rotation you put together. So don't use the same pieces, basically. Try something different. And I know what the next few questions are going to be, which is why I'm trying not to say too much about Billy. But yeah, what do you think on, is Billy the problem?
Yeah, I 100% agree with what you said. Billy is not the problem, but he is a big part of the problem.
Yeah.
And to go back onto what Troy said in his little kind of statement piece, I've not been a big fan of Blow It Up. I'm not a big fan of Blow It Up because it's slow. It's it's hard to watch. You have to go through some real lean stuff before you get to the good stuff again. But we're kind of going through that now anyway, and it is rotten through the core. So maybe Blow It Up is a good idea. But the reality of that is that's not going to happen. It's not. So whether you want to see it blown up or whether you don't want to see it blown up, I think it's not on the cards. It's not a possibility. It's certainly not at this stage anyway.
Yeah.
So in regards to Billy, like you say, we've got more coming on Billy anyway. But yeah, we spoke about this briefly before. Billy seems to have like a plan laid out for the game, and he doesn't seem to have that ability to deviate from the plan. And that's all good and well if the plan's working. But if the plan isn't working, which it really isn't right now, you're kind of stuck if you can't make in-game changes and in-game decisions. Yeah, okay, my plan was to play Vooch for 32 minutes of the game today, but Vooch hasn't shown up today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play him for 24 minutes and I'm going to give the extra minutes to Drummond, or I'm going to go small ball for a few minutes. He doesn't seem to have that ability to make in-game changes and rotational changes that way. And that's a problem for me with Billy.
Yeah, and it obviously goes back to that tweet from Mark Kay. He is moving the pieces around.
Yeah.
But like you say, if Vooch isn't performing in them 36 minutes or whatever it is that you're giving him, don't give him the minutes. Move him around. Move him around in game. And that's the bit that, like you say, he just can't seem to do, or doesn't want to do, or doesn't know how to do.
Yeah.
So, obviously, the last two questions both come from Davey T, aka Geordie Bulls, and however many other names he's gone through on Twitter. But yeah, I know that obviously Davey is a long-time listener and does appreciate our takes. So we appreciate the questions, and he was the first one to actually put the questions in. And his first one was, what team will Zach LaVine be playing for at the end of the season? Now,
do you want me to answer that?
I mean, we both answered it the same way before, didn't we, when we were chatting about it? And
yeah,
the one team we can say he won't be playing for, Chicago Bulls. What team will he be playing for?
I have no idea.
I mean, I guess
that's the thing. We were that's what we were talking about earlier on. The direction that this team takes is all centered on that first move with Zach. And right now, I don't know what direction Acme want to take this in, so it's very hard to predict where Zach will end up.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we said it on the last episode as well. It's getting to a point where I don't particularly care what team he goes to, as long as it's the right move for Bulls.
Right.
If Zach wants to go to Lakers, great. I don't like the offer that Lakers are giving or potentially giving. I don't. Them players don't excite me. That is it. Hudshifino, whatever his name is, he'd be the young piece. Doesn't even play for Lakers, so he's not going to play for Bulls, is he?
No.
Personally, as I said before, I'd like to see Zach go out west. And look, if Zach ends up on a contender, fair play to him. I hope he goes, and I hope he gets his ring. I've got no ill feeling towards Zach over all this. When Zach pulls on that, or has pulled on that jersey in the past, he's given everything. He's played through injuries. He's become an all-star, blah, blah, blah. And I can't fault him for not wanting to be here anymore. Especially when you start hearing that the team are taking calls. The amount of loyalty that he's shown, why should he go through that? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I do kind of want to see him go and have his chance somewhere else. But at the same time, if he ends up going to Pistons and we get somebody like Jaden Ivey, I'd take that over Zach getting his ring with Lakers.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, in answer to the question, we don't know, but we both don't think it'll be Bulls.
No, he won't be here anyway.
Yeah. And then his second question, again, we don't really know, but also, who will be Bulls head coach at the end of this season? And I think
I think I do
we,
know.
yeah, we both kind of said it, didn't we? It's
Yeah.
Billy.
Yeah, it's going to be Billy Donovan. Whether people like that or they don't like that, all signs point to it being Billy Donovan.
Yeah.
Still here at the end of the season.
I mean, on that, just quickly before we finish off, if we were to get rid of Billy, would it change anything with this current roster?
That's a good question. And I guess it's really, really, really hard to know because the talent, as we say, the talent is there. But is it the coach's fault that the talent aren't gelling? Or is it just that the chemistry just is not there on the floor? Because they get on off the floor by all accounts. But if they're not gelling on the floor, I don't think it matters how many trips you take down to Nashville. It doesn't matter who's in charge of the team. If they can't put it together on the floor, it makes no odds. It makes no odds. The
Yeah,
only thing is, you might see a few more wins, but it wouldn't turn the season round or anything like that.
yeah, a few more wins because it's new, and you've got a new person, hopefully shouting as well, which Billy doesn't tend to do.
No.
But then the other question would be, who is there?
Billy does.
Who is there out there that we could get in?
But that's the other question, isn't it?
All the coaches that were available went somewhere. I think there's only maybe Doc Rivers, is there, that's not gone somewhere? Can't remember now.
Would you like Doc Rivers here?
That's what I mean. Does he change anything?
Well, he shouts.
And if you bring somebody up, like is it Chris Fleming, that
Mm.
sort of Billy's assistant,
Mm-hmm.
does that change anything? Because
it's going to be the same schemes.
Yeah.
More or less anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I personally think that Billy's still going to be here. Changes, it's going to have to be player changes. And who knows? Then we might be fans of Billy like Pat Bev.
Yeah, you never know. Change is good. Change is needed. But speaking on the Billy thing, just to extend that a little bit further, I definitely don't see a change to the head coach position this season. But then the question was, who will be the head coach of the Chicago Bulls at the end of the season? And I think it'll be Billy. Now, if you're to extend that past the summer and ask me who's going to be the head coach of the Chicago Bulls next season, there's a possibility for change at that stage. If this season continues to free fall the way it is, and if we really do end up with Fred Hoiberg or Tim Floyd type season, then they're going to have to look at changing up the coaching position, I think. But the off season is the ideal time to make a coaching change. That's when you know what availability is there with other coaches as well and what changes you can potentially make. So I think if this does continue to fall the way it's fallen, we could potentially see a head coach change coming into next season. But it's very hard to talk about next season and get excited about what could happen next season when we're only in November and this season's falling apart already.
Yeah. So, speaking of change, predictions for the next. Well, I've put down the next 4 games because we just don't know when we're going to be recording next. We're both quite busy with work and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, change comes without a first one, which is Celtics tomorrow night or tonight, whenever you're listening to this. Now, we both predicted an L last time.
Mm-hmm.
Things have slightly changed for Celtics. Porzingis is out. Drew Holiday's missed the last couple of games. Does that change your mind? Obviously, it is our last in-season tournament game as well.
Right.
Everything
so
to not play for.
That's exactly what I was going to say. So the in-season tournament means absolute zip to this team now, apart from the fact that it is a regular season game as well.
It meant something
So
to Raptors, though.
yeah, it meant something to every team we've been playing against in the
Yeah,
in-season
but it meant
tournament.
Raptors needed them extra points, which
Right.
frustrated Demar. So
Yeah.
even though they was out,
But yeah. But at this stage, this means nothing to the Bulls, right? Not that it ever looked like it meant anything to them anyway.
no.
But yeah, so in-season tournament, I don't think that tips the scale any bit. But we're playing the Celtics. Okay, they're missing
13-4.
Porzingis and they're missing Holiday, but no, I don't. Now we compete quite well against the Celtics ordinarily, but no, I'm not changing my mind. This is an L. This is an L coming.
Yeah, you kind of think with Porzingis being out that Vooch could cook, but
I wouldn't
Vooch,
trust him to make me scrambled eggs right now.
I was say Vooch hasn't even. I don't even think he knows how to light the stove at the minute, does he? He's just
The fire is out.
Yeah. So yeah, I haven't changed. I'm saying an L.
Mm-hmm.
And then they come back home for a game later on in the week against Milwaukee, who currently sit 12-5,
Mm-hmm.
having already beaten us pretty convincingly once this season. What are you saying?
I'm saying that I'm going to throw out my little flex again. I saw Giannis play a few weeks ago, and he looked bad and scored 30 points. It doesn't matter how bad Giannis plays, he still gets the numbers. And when he's going up against a turnstile that's off its hinges like Vooch is right now, I don't think we have a hope. I don't think we have a hope against Milwaukee right now. Not playing the way we're playing.
Yeah, and last night I think Brook Lopez went for 30 points as well.
Yeah. Brook Lopez
Portland.
went for 30 points.
And as we know, Brook Lopez cooks Vooch every time we play.
Yeah.
So I'll go with an L, just to keep on trend.
Mm-hmm.
We then got Pelicans at the weekend, who are currently 9-8. I'm going with an L because
I'd love to say that this is the one we win, but I can't.
No, because they've got Jonas Valanciunas, who cooks Vooch.
Anybody spotting a trend here?
And then, just because we don't know when we're going to be back, we've got Bucks again next week. Who have
Revenge
got
game.
But Bucks have got Brook Lopez, who cooks Vooch.
Uh-huh.
So I'm going with an L.
I can't disagree. I can't disagree with you. This is the scary thing. Like, we've got 4 games coming up before we potentially record again, maybe or maybe not. But either way, we've got 4 games coming up, and all 4 games look like losses. All 4 of them.
Yeah. And I think I said it on the last one. I can't see it changing, and our record is eventually going to end. I mean, what are we now? 5-13. By the time we next record, we could be 5-17.
That is a scary prospect, but unfortunately, it is potentially a reality with this team right now.
I mean, even if on that very, very slim opportunity we win all 4, we're still going to be 9-13.
Yeah, which isn't going to happen, by the way.
Nah. So yeah, just quickly to finish off, Windy City play Mad Ants tomorrow. It's 11 p.m. tip for us here in the UK. Again, I think it's only available on ESPN Plus, which is really starting to piss me off at the minute because I actually want to watch it. Yeah, I'd rather stay up to watch that and then go to bed before Celtics destroy Bulls. But yeah, obviously we will bring updates as and when on Windy City, because they've got some good players that actually look like they want to play basketball and know how to play basketball. So yeah,
you went.
that's it. I think. Like I say, we don't know when we're going to be back. Maybe gone a little bit longer with it being the mailbag, but
Yeah,
at least we're showing up.
true. And a big thank you to everybody that sent in questions. We appreciate
Absolutely.
each and every one of you. Hopefully you enjoy our answers, even though some of them were a little bit vague because we just can't get our finger on the pulse of this team right now.
Yeah. And I'm kind of assuming the fact that you've asked us them questions means you don't know yourself and you're arguing in your own head like we spend most of our lives. So, yeah, as you said, thanks everyone who sent them in. Thanks for listening. I've just remembered we did have some from Easy, but
Oh yeah. Do you want to throw those out because they were quite good actually?
yeah, it's because this all over the place, these messages. Right, yeah. So welcome back. Got some questions from Easy. Now, Easy, if anyone doesn't follow, spent last week in Chicago enjoying himself despite this shit show. And he's asked 4 questions. And the first one is, who will be our next coach?
Right. I have no clue.
No.
That's me being straight up. I haven't delved into it to see what kind of availability may be there. But like I say, I don't expect it to be this season. It will be for next season if it changes. So I'd have to look at which coaches become available in the summer before I could answer that.
Yeah, I mean, off the top of my head, as we said, sort of with Davy's question, you got Doc Rivers, Mike Budenholzer.
No.
He
Double
couldn't.
no.
He had Giannis and won one title. Do you know what I mean? And then they
I'd
sacked him.
take one title right now, though.
I'd take Giannis as well.
Yeah, that's true.
um. So yeah, like you said, I think you have to just wait and see who becomes available as and when, and if the move is to be made, then they make it then. Second question: how to be finally successful in a rebuild?
Make the right moves, I guess. It's all about Acme pulling the right strings, making the right con moves, and getting back better than what we give out, or at least when I say better, it doesn't necessarily have to be more talented, but more fitting to the scheme, more fitting to the squad. It all comes down to the right moves being made in order to make this successful.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, we thought the last rebuild was going to be successful.
That's true.
And
it almost was for 35 games. It was, and then it fell apart.
Yeah. Question 3: did AK trick us?
Now, that is an interesting question. And at the moment, it kind of does look like they pulled the wool over our eyes a bit. The old smoke and mirrors seems to have worked, but the smoke is fading, and everyone's beginning to realize something needs to be done because it didn't work, it hasn't worked, and Acme, unfortunately, AK and Mark are the ones that are standing there left with egg on their face because they're the ones that made the moves that haven't worked.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, the moves did work, but not all together. You brought in Lonzo. Lonzo was fantastic. He didn't know he was going to go down with this injury.
No.
So you can't put that on AK as much as you want to. Vooch ultimately now looks like it's not worked.
Mm-hmm.
The whole trade. DeMar, can't knock anything DeMar has done in a Bulls jersey. So that worked. Caruso, currently our best player. That one worked. So somewhere along the line, it didn't work. And
well, they certainly haven't drafted particularly well.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I can't trust AK to do is draft. And we've seen that with every draft pick, basically. I'd say the one that they've got right is Ayo right now.
Yeah.
And that is it. And hopefully Julian Phillips. My guy.
Watch this space.
Yeah. And the last one from Easy. Any players to bet on? I love Suggs and Isaac. Now, I don't know if that's in regards to Zach trade or players we'd like to see come in somehow with trades or what.
Yeah.
Obviously, the only way we're going to get any sort of player is through trades. And going back to the Zach one, like we said, Jaden Ivey, we both love him at Bulls.
Yeah, definitely.
I liked the look of the potential one to Charlotte, including Brandon Miller coming back our way. Just because, he's second overall pick.
Second.
Not that he worked for P. Will, been number 4, but if you're going to get something, it's, to me, that young piece has got to be someone like that. Obviously, there's players around the league I'd love to see come in, but realistically, probably not gonna.
That's the thing, isn't it? It's got to be a bit of a punt, and they either get lucky or they don't. Because if you try and get an established player right now that's already looking like they have a huge upside and playing well, then you're probably not going to be able to get them.
No.
Do you know? What kind of a package are you going to have to put together in order to get them back? And then you've got to make up the difference then in the salaries as well. So, it's going to be a tough one to make work. But like you say, someone like Brandon Miller, who hasn't shown his full potential yet, but still has that potentially high ceiling, is someone worth putting your stock into and seeing, does it pan out or does it not? If it works out, everybody praise the Lord, Acme got it right. But if it doesn't work out, everybody be baying for their blood. So, they're stuck that way. They have to take a punt at some point, and they're either going to get lucky or they're not. And a lot of it comes down to luck, and a lot of it comes down to good scouting. But I think at this stage, with the way their hands are tied to a certain degree, they need a bit of luck.
Yeah. So yeah, that does round off the mailbag. Apologies, Easy, but we did get you in. Yeah. So as I say, don't know when we're going to be back. Possibly this week, probably next week, but I'm sure you'll hear about it when we do come back. And yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks everyone for your questions. And as usual, I've been Matt. You can find me on Twitter at MattCRedUK, and you can find us on all the socials at CRedUK.
And you can find me on Twitter at NeillCRedUK. On behalf of both Matt and myself and the Fans First Sports Network, thanks once again to everyone for tuning in, whether you're watching or listening. We do ask you, please, if you can, do subscribe, rate and review, and give us a thumbs up on YouTube. It does help us to keep providing you with this content. From us both, do remember it's a Chicago Bulls thing wherever in the world you are supporting this team. And until next time, see red people and go Bulls.
Percolator. It's time for the percolator. Percolator.